Everybody in. We don't have any music for our intro today because Spotify is down. Um, so yeah, we've got nothing. So if anybody wants to sing, unmute yourself and give her. Yeah, that was poor timing on Spotify's part to go down, but that's all right. And that said, well, we get started. Let's start our waterfall of where is everybody from? Posted in the chat. Where are we coming from today? Let's see what we've got. Come on, fire up the chat. There we go. Oh, we got a California, Boston, New York. Woohoo! Did we get a Victoria in there? Oh, Pamela, you're just across the water from me. I'm in Vancouver. Another BC. Look at that. All right. New Jersey, Hamptons, Spain. Awesome. All the way from Valencia. What do we got here? Culver, California. Oh, we got a Philippines in here as well. I love the Philippines. Another Vancouver. What is going on with Vancouver? We've got a whole bunch of Canadians in here today. Toronto's, Canada's, Victoria's. What is up with that? Wisconsin, no, Canadians are representing. Toto Santos, New Zealand. All right, awesome. We've got that's a lot. Okay, Ireland. Wow, we got some distance here, folks. South Africa. Okay, I think South Africa might be the furthest one, I suspect. Brilliant. All right. Welcome, everybody. Regina, what is up with the Canadians today? We've got just an overabundance of Canadians on here. And all right, welcome. So let's get this underway and let's get this started. So we have a guest that I've been excited to do this live session with. And look, have you ever met someone that has the ability to kind of just share their story with clarity, confidence? They can just draw you in with that. Well, the person today that we're going to interview actually teaches that. And if you've ever heard the name Robin Fisher Roffer, it's probably because she's been doing this for a long time. She's helped shape the brands of all sorts of big companies, the CNNs, the MTVs, the Comedy Centrals, the Food Network. She's the powerhouse behind Big Fish Marketing consultant that helps not just big brands, but also individuals tell their stories in ways that stick. So she's kind of a story whisperer, I guess you could say. And she also helps people going through transitions, reinventions, career pivots, leadership leaps, figure out who they are and what they stand for and how they show up. She's written a whole bunch of books, I think four on fearless leadership, personal branding, and the list could go on. So without further ado, Robin, welcome.
Hey everyone, I'm so happy to be here. Wow, look at all these people. And I'm seeing some people from my neck of the woods, New Mexico. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Yeah, we've got a good turnout and they're still coming in fast. So okay, so the obvious place I think, Robin, I think we have to start here, if we're going to talk about personal stories, is you.
Yeah, well, I was raised by a single dad, and he was an ad man. So, what do I mean by that? I mean, he was this guy who sold time and space, time on the radio, right, for commercials, and
Mhm.
space in the newspaper. And when I was growing up, my sister and I just sat at the table after dinner. We'd clear the dinner table, and my dad would lay out ads. After doing sort of being a salesman at different media companies, he had his own boutique firm out of our kitchen. Okay, so I think some of you can probably relate to having a business out of your kitchen or having a business in your den. And he would lay out all the ads. My sister was 10 and I was 11. And he would say, what do you think the headline should be? What do you think the image should be? What's the copy? What are we trying to sell here? And we would help him with his ad campaigns. We learned how to be ad men because there were no ad women to speak of, at his knee. And so when I became a single mom, I did the same with my daughter. I took my daughter to work. My daughter started working for me at Big Fish Marketing at 15. And actually, she just came in last night to New Mexico. She is working for Range Media in film as a on the production side. So she learned from me and others that taught her at USC, and also her, her mentors and her guides. And today, it's sort of like a take your daughter to work story, a bit is my story. But advertising, marketing, storytelling, and finding the essence of who you are or your brand or the company that you represent or the company you've created. That is what I was taught from the earliest age. It is in my DNA. It is what I thrive on. Great storytelling. It just draws people in. And I told you that story about my dad as an ad man raising two little girls by himself. And when I told that story to the head of sales at Scripps Interactive at the time, soon to be Discovery, later to become Warner Brothers, that that guy, he said to me, I want every one of my salespeople to have a story like that. I want them to know what's different about them, not just the brands they're representing, which at the time was Food Network and HGTV and all the ones that were just mentioned, but why they need you to be in the room with them. What makes you the expert that can elevate their business or do the job better than anyone else? What makes you the go to person? So you don't have to have had a single dad. You don't have to have had a situation like mine to have a story that's unique. And every one of you that's here today has an amazing story. And what my skill is in pulling it out of you. And it might be the story you haven't wanted to tell that's actually where your vein of gold lives.
Mm, interesting. So, how did you connect with MEA? I mean, telling stories for big brands. How does this connect to midlife, to the people here?
Well, one of my dearest friends, Liz Heller, she had, I think it was almost 20 years ago when I wrote my first book called Make a Name for Yourself. She had bought just boxes of these books and were giving them to all of her girlfriends and didn't know me, but we had the same business manager. We ended up at a party together years ago. And she said, Oh my God, you're the woman who I've been buying all your books and giving them away. We became fast friends, obviously. And, and she ended up becoming friends with Chip Conley.
Mm,
And he was building Modern Elder Academy in Santa Fe. And I came just, I think it was right when they were kind of almost, it was almost done, the academy. And he walked me around the campus and I was blown away. I brought him lunch, flowers, a whole thing, because I knew they were under construction. And I set out a whole table of lovely things for us to eat. And we sat down and we talked. And I told him the story I just told you. And I told him that I was transitioning and that I still had Big Fish, the agency, but I wanted to just teach workshops and write books and give speeches. I no longer wanted to be writing speeches for executives and creating brands for television networks and media companies. I had done that for decades and I was ready to do my side hustle. How many of you have a side hustle that you absolutely love that you wish could be your full time job or at least a part time job so you could really enjoy this next act in life? And he said, Let's do it. Let's have a workshop where you teach it. So I taught in December. It was incredible. People walked out of the room completely transformed because once they got the pieces of their life put together in a way that made them the superhero of their own story, they had tremendous confidence. And then we blue skied the vision for their future. It
mm.
was amazing. And so I'm lucky enough to get asked back and be here with all of you today.
Yeah, I mean, after that workshop, as everybody knows who's been to one of our workshops, we send out surveys, and your feedback was overwhelmingly like life-changing for people. And that's like, okay, we're gonna do this again. And last time you were like right before Christmas as well. Like,
Yeah, it was like the week before Christmas. And I
yeah.
said, everybody here is giving a gift to themselves and they're starting 2025 with vigor, right? Because we want to start the new year in a solid place, knowing who we are, why we're here, what our purpose is, and what the vision is for our life. And at the end of the workshop, and this is something I'll give a nod to my daughter again, who's in the movie business, I ask you all to write down what is your movie. You start, it's a 24-hour movie. It starts at whatever time you get up. For me, it's 6:30, whatever it is for you. And it ends at 10:30. That would be for me, whatever time you go to bed. And what happens in between in complete detail. You are going to authorize who is your cast, who is your crew. You are the director of this movie that is your life. You are the screenwriter. You pick the leading lady or man. That's something else I like to talk about a lot is love in midlife. And then you pick your crew and your location. Where are you going to live? What do you want to do? And you just let your mind go. And it is that's what you walk out with this vision for your future, which is your new story. And how exciting is that?
So curious, people coming to you, and particularly with the MEA, how many of these were people that like have the side hustle and they want the story that they can tell succinctly in an engaging way versus people that were just there to understand their own story and
Yeah,
make sense
that's
of
a
it?
good question. I think it was 50-50.
Yeah, interesting.
People that had an inkling of what they wanted to do. They didn't know the timing. They didn't know how to brand it. I help everyone come up with a mission statement that's 7 words or less. Mine is guiding you to write, tell, and live your greatest story.
Yeah.
Everything that I do has to go inside that mission, or I won't do it. That's how I get to say no. I say, I'm sorry, that's not a mission for me if I'm offered an opportunity. So I gave everybody us and we do an exercise where they come up with it themselves, but if they're struggling, I help them. 7 words or less. Why are you here? What is your purpose? So
Mm,
if you don't know what that is, I help
mhm.
you get there. If your mission statement is, a paragraph, I help you get it down to 7 words. And why 7 words? So you can remember it when somebody says, tell me about yourself. People don't know, people don't want to know why what you do. They want to know why you're doing it, right? So you don't have to have an inkling of what you want to do next once you leave the situation you're in. This workshop helps you discover it if you don't know. But if you do have an idea, it crystallizes it.
Okay, I love what you said there. It's not what you do, it's why you're doing it. Dig into that. Give us an example of maybe somebody or something or yourself so we can feel
Yeah,
it.
well, when I train salespeople and executives, I'll say, tell me about yourself. That's the question that
Mhm.
everyone gets in some form or another. Or tell me your story. I want to know more about you. When I met Chip, he loves to hear other people's story.
Yeah.
So you don't want to start with who you were, your title, what you don't want to hang your hat on any of what was, or even maybe who you are in the present. Like your title's the most boring thing. So my title is CEO and founder of Big Fish Marketing. It means zero to everyone. Maybe if I was my last client, CEO of Delta Airlines, that might mean something and lead to conversation. But for most people, saying your title, what company you ran, the business you're in, it's a ho hum. But if I say, I'm here to help you tell your greatest story, that's who I am, that's what I do. They're going to say, wait a minute, tell me more about storytelling. What do you mean by greatest story? It leads to conversation, it leads to interest, and it leads to an emotional connection because you're telling people a benefit to them, right? Which is you consider your audience, who am I talking to, and what do they need?
Hmm.
And it elevates your stock in the moment. So I write that one of the things that I did in my, up until January of this year, you guys, so I'm a person in transition too, is the ultimate thing after I create the brand and the story for these huge corporations and media companies, I would then write the speeches for their executives to give in front of their constituents, their stakeholders, their investors, their advertisers, whoever they were making money from. And you could literally see the stock of the companies go up the next day. So when you have a great story that's well structured in 3 acts, right? Because it's going to be really short, it's going to be like 20 seconds. You're going to tell them why you're here, the 3 reasons why it matters, or the 3 places you're going to go with that mission. and then some great storytelling in between. And in those 20 to 30 seconds, you've captivated them. And you personally, your stock goes up in their eyes because you're telling your truest, greatest story about you. And
Mm,
it's not a fictionalized version of you, it's not inauthentic. It's your true north, it's where
mhm,
you're marching towards. And
mhm.
that is so inspiring to people. They can't help but fall in love with you.
So when we dig into the story, there's your why you're what you're doing, how you're helping. It's not the who you are. What makes a story interesting? Because there's got to be more than just the why. Let's dig into the psychology of this. And I know you've got some great nuggets in
Oh,
here.
sure. Well, so I there are like seven different ways to tell a story. There's probably hundreds, but they go maybe in seven buckets, right?
Mhm, mhm,
One of them is David versus Goliath. I was the kid of a single dad. I was one of the only women to start an agency. I was on my own, and I did it. And I beat the biggest agencies in New York out of major business. So like there's a story to that, right? The David versus Goliath. Everyone has one. There's the silver bullet story. So
mhm,
if somebody asks me, how did you get into entertainment? Why did you focus so much of your career in television? I tell them a story about being in a fire as a child in Inglewood, California. By the way, general is the enemy of the memorable. So when you say, I was in Inglewood, California, it was 1966. We had a house fire. My house burned to the ground, but before that happened, my mother rescued me out of my bed, and I rescued my little Sony portable TV because I didn't have a doll. That was the thing that kept me safe, secure. I knew the entire television schedule, backwards and forwards, what time the monkeys came on, what time Romper Room came on, what time, Batman and Robin, like all my favorite shows. And I love television. It kept me safe and warm. It was the one thing that made it out of that burning fire. And then I ask you, what would you take out of your house if you were in that situation? Maybe that is really the key to your passion. So we do all these, ways in, but storytelling, like that's called the silver bullet story. The
mhm,
silver bullet is the TV, right? So I did that. We turned CNN into the world's news leader. I helped greenlight that campaign when I was very, very young. That line, the world's news leader, that James Earl Jones um, actually voiced over. Oh my gosh, that was a great day when that happened. That changed
mhm,
everything. So that story is another David versus Goliath story because CBS, NBC, ABC, those were the big news networks. When they said that, it was David winning over Goliath, the three big networks. So this is one thing that is so important is knowing how to tell a great story in the way in. All stories, Derek, they are like great road trips. You
mhm,
have to know who the passenger is in your car and map a trip that's good for them. No more than three stops over a weekend. Let's face it, overwhelming, right? So you
mhm,
want three stops in your story. You need to let them know what the destination is. Mine is helping you tell your greatest story. So
mhm.
now here are the three ways we're going to get there. And then the conversation along the way cannot detour from the road trip because what's the worst thing that can happen, Derek, when you're on a road trip?
You get lost.
You get lost. How many people tell stories and now they're on another tangent? They get
Uh-huh.
totally lost. Anyway, you asked me were there different ways to tell stories. I gave you a couple, but there are five more that I can share with everyone when they come and join me, or I can do it in a leave behind. I could actually, maybe we could send everybody on this call the seven great ways to tell a
Sure.
story. That would be kind of a nice gift for everyone. So I'll get that to y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So where do you start when somebody says, nobody's interested? I don't have a story. Nobody
I,
cares.
so it's like being an artichoke. How do you like to eat an artichoke, Derek? I know how I do, but what's your way of eating an artichoke? Do you like artichokes, by the way?
I don't remember if I've ever eaten one. Can
Oh my
you give
gosh.
me another
Okay, well,
vegetable?
I'm a Californian. So for all my Californians who are rolling their eyes now, Derek, like, what? You never had an artichoke? That's like a sin. So, okay, so you're going to get one this weekend, and I'm going to tell you what to do. You're going to steam it, and then leaf by leaf, you're going to take off the leaves and you're going to get the meat off the leaves with your teeth. It's really an incredible process. And
Okay.
then when you get to the heart, because that's the best part where you
Yep.
cut up and everyone shares the heart, there's this thing called the fuzzy choke. And you have to scoop out the fuzzy choke. So getting to your story is just like this. On day three, or if you're working with me on a high speed workshop, like when we only have a day with a group, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, let's put it that way, everyone is feeling the fuzzy choke.
Hmm.
They leaf by leaf, we've been telling your stories, different parts of your story. We're getting to the heart, to the essence of you. And when we get close to that fuzzy choke, you feel like, oh my God, now I'm a little scared. I feel a little choked up. I don't know if I can go to the heart. I don't know if I can get there. And then I guide you through it. I scoop out that choke for you. I help you get through it, and we get to the heart. So it's just like eating an artichoke. And what we're looking for is the pure essence of you, what your soul is crying for, what it really wants you to do in this world. And it's a process, but it's a not a it's a wonderful process. It's as delicious as eating an artichoke, but when we get to that heart of the story, you may feel a little prickly, and then I give you permission to keep going. And if you're
Mm.
going to do this on your own, guys, just know that when you get to that uncomfortable place, that's when you're onto something. That's when you know you're almost there. You just got to push a little bit harder through the pain, and that heart is waiting for you.
Now, can we dig into some of the stories that you've helped uncover for people and just
Sure.
share some so we can and walk us through this metamorphosis, the artichoke. Walk us through the artichoke and how you kind of you peeled off the layers, got rid of the fuzz, and found it.
Well, that's funny. There was a woman in my group this last time who I fell in love. First of all, I have this habit of falling in love with everybody, and I love it. I fall in love with their stories. And it's just such an intimate thing, and we all become very connected. But one of the things that happened is this woman came in, she was wildly successful. She had done so many great things in her career, but mostly she had built this business for the last couple decades, and it was hard for her to let go and transition into what was next. And she didn't see what was next. And we got her there. We helped her tell a story that pulled out all her skill sets, everything that she brought to the table, all her talents, her expertise. Remember, I'm going to go back to general. General is the enemy of the memorable. If you come off as a jack of all trades, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. We want to zero in on the one thing that your audience, this market, this moment needs from you, that you love to do, that you're passionate about. Again, like the artichokes, you're just putting them all out on the table. You've eaten them all, and you're like, oh, this is the one, right? This is the leaf of my life that I need to bring forward. So we brought that leaf forward. We gave her a new story that elevated what she had done for all these years and synthesized it into a very clear mission and tagline. So my tagline is storyteller, right? Brand, strategist, and storyteller. That's what's on my LinkedIn at the top. It does not say CEO of Big Fish Marketing, okay? It has that storyteller piece to it. So, we got that down for her, and that was very exciting. And everyone in the room, it was something like that. And whether I do, I'll tell you another good one. So, a woman who's the head of landscape and design, gardening design at HGTV, I met her we had a smart home here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I went to dinner with her. And she said, I want to elevate myself to the next level. I'm doing this thing on TV, but I don't know how long TV is going to be popular. We all know the story of what's happened to TV, and now it's streaming. But how do I take what I've been doing and go to the next level? And she came here to Santa Fe. We did a one-on-one workshop, and she came out with a new tagline, which was a friend to the everyday gardener. So here she was, the superstar in HGTV, but we changed her brand to the friend to the everyday gardener. And now she's sending plans to people for their gardens via email based on, measurements and pictures. And she's giving tips and tricks on her social media for everyday gardeners to be as fabulous as her. So just by saying everyday gardener, there was another woman in one of my workshops who she writes this sexy sort of hyper romantic literature. She's a writer. And so we branded her Shamelessly Sexy. That's now the name of her company. And people are coming to her in droves to help them. Also, personally, now she's coaching people on how to be shamelessly sexy and writing about it. And it is her pleasure and her joy. So it's allowing you to go to that place that you thought was a little scary, and knowing that that's probably what people are going to gravitate to because it's the real, authentic you.
Yeah. So as I'm listening here, I, and I've done this, your first thing is, oh, I need to position myself as an authority. I'm the CEO. I'm this, I'm that. But what you're repositioning is more of an authentic story that people will connect to.
That's exactly right. I'm feeling like maybe on this call, some people are in fear of that. Like they're starting to bubble up some fear because, oh, geez, what she's talking about sounds a little scary. I was so much more comfortable saying my title or what I did do before I retired as
Mhm.
a way of answering the question, who are you now? What are you doing now? So I just want you all to know that my Achilles heel, and maybe some of you have this, we were joking before the call that everybody in entertainment, really just wants to be loved and liked. We're all secret performers, some of us more outward than others, like me. But um, I'm really afraid of that, so I'm really afraid of telling a story that people won't like or they won't connect with. So I'm really diligent about the story being real and there
Mhm.
not being any overblownness to it. Overblownness, I think I just made that up. There's, nothing that feels forced or silly. Like I want it to feel like it's really who you are. So, um, owning who you are is
Mm.
really part of this journey and not being afraid to tell the story about the real you in a way that's in service to others. It's not selling, it's in service to others so they know where to put you. I have a friend who is a jack of all trade, really a Jill of all trades. She can do everything, but nobody knows what she does. It's very dangerous not to sort of plant your flag and declare to the world why you're here and what you can do for others. But if you're in a moment where you're just transitioning into a quieter time of your life, into retirement, I want to help you make those next 30 to 40 years filled with zest and resilience and vigor and joy and you doing all the things you dreamed you were going to do when you were working your ass off, right? Trying to make the big bucks and now, or just trying to make a buck, and now you want to have a quieter time. What does that look like? That's also another thing I want to explore with you because that's where I'm at. So I'm right there with you in that quieter part of life. Although I sound pretty loud today, Derek. I'm shouting from the rooftops because I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm impassioned
And
about
it's
what I
infectious.
do.
It's good. It's good. Let's talk about the fear a little bit
Okay.
here
Yeah.
because I think I see this, there's a fear, they can't put a word to it, they don't know why it's there, it's preventing them from taking that step. Can we explore that a little bit more?
Well, what it is look, when you're not in faith
Mm-hmm.
of yourself, your talents, and everyone around you that's cheering you on, you're in fear. When you're in fear, there's absolutely no way to be in faith. Okay, so fear is the block. So, one of the things we do at MEA, and this isn't my part, I have some wonderful teachers that I work with that help you to get beyond your principal barriers, as we call it in marketing, or your fears. What are
Mm-hmm.
you most afraid of? So, working through that's very important. And today, just you guys could write down, what am I most afraid of? I told you one of my biggest fears is I'm not going to be liked and loved. And if I'm not liked and loved, then I will be abandoned. And if I'm abandoned, I'll be all alone. And if I'm all alone, that and no one loves me, then do I matter? So I take myself all the way down the rabbit hole, and it can happen on any day where I can feel that way. Now, how do I get out of that rabbit hole? A lot of us are feeling that right now because of the markets, because of the uncertainty, because of all kinds of things. How do we get out of that feeling of fear, that feeling of I'm going to be abandoned? It's all, my money's going to be all gone. All these things I know people are feeling because they call me and they tell me, and I've felt them myself. You go into gratitude, you go into abundance. You write down everything that you're so, and you guys have heard this already, but so happy about. I can't tell you how it switches the light and it
Hmm.
opens up opportunity and possibility when you show up and you just say, I'm grateful to be on this call. I'm grateful to be in this moment, to hear what I'm hearing. I'm grateful that after this, I'm going to have a really nutritious lunch. I'm grateful, whatever it is, it's little things. My dog is waiting outside my door, and we're going to go for a walk after this. You're constantly looking at the abundance side, and that opens up the possibility of the story coming through and you becoming braver, more courageous. It's in gratitude that we become brave and courageous and get more faith in who we are and what we can do. At any point in life, you can do this.
Interesting. Yeah. When I think about the MEA community, and I've seen it in my time here, so many people that are in that midlife, they're making that transition, they're going, what next? And I can see that there's something there. They want to do it, but there's this fear holding them back, this insecurity, this uncertainty. They don't know how to go. They don't know the questioning themselves. Um, and I feel like you're getting to the root of that.
Yeah, and we get to the root of it, and we need to get to the root. And even if today, you're in South Africa, you're not coming to a workshop, maybe you can't because you're in Canada and Canadians are having some hesitation coming here. Please come, we need you. Um, but you're having these things going on in your mind. Um, Write it down. I've been starting a practice where I'm just writing it all down and getting the ants out of my head, the trash out of my head. So I write down all the trash talk that I can come up with in a moment. I write it all down. And then I write the truth. So
Mhm.
following the trash, get all the ants out, all the monkeys, the monkey brain, you're going crazy, write it all down. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough of all these things. And then write down the truth. But wait a minute, my history is, my track record is, I am brave, I am strong, I am resilient. I'm writing a book right now that's very scary. I'm writing a book about midlife love and how to find it because that's part of reinvention. You reinvent yourself sometimes for love, right?
Mhm.
And and I've been married 3 times, so I think I'm an absolute expert on the subject of love. And been asked to be married many times. No joke. I'm not kidding. I'm telling you something that's my real truth. For years, I was ashamed.
Yeah.
For years, I thought, like, I'm a loser. I'm a failure. Why can't I get this right? And then I did a lot of work on myself and found out what my part was in the demise of those marriages. And guess what? I end up meeting a dad at my school where my daughter goes to school. And we go on our third date. And he doesn't know that I've been married multiple times. He only can remember the last husband, right? As a dad at the school. And I said, I have to tell you something because we were falling in love already. And I said, I have to tell you something, Brian. And he said, what? And I said, I've been married 3 times. And he leaned back, he looked up, and oh my God, my heart was racing. And then he looked forward and he said, so let me get this straight. While I was in an unhappy marriage for over 2 decades, you were having an adventure? Now that's great storytelling.
That's fantastic.
Not me telling you the story, but Brian in that moment
Yeah,
reframing my story as an
totally.
adventure. You guys, I am like kvelling. That's Yiddish for I am, I don't know what. We don't even have a word for it. I just so full of love and appreciation for this man who accepted me for who I am with what I thought were warts and he thought was enough to write a book about. And
Wow.
how can you find love in midlife? And how can you stop being ashamed of things that didn't work out and focus on what did? I raised an incredible daughter. I have a company that is 33 years old. So we don't look at that. We don't look at the abundance and have grace for our shortcomings. We're always on our shortcomings instead of having the being our own cheerleader. I know you
Mhm.
guys can probably tell I was a cheerleader in high school. So I am going to cheer you all on in telling your true stories, no matter what, because that is why
Wow.
I am here.
How often do you find when you're working with people that you get down to something that they were actually, in this case, sort of ashamed of, that turns out to be the fuel for their story?
Well, we've done that in a lot of workshops. I take the story they are most ashamed of and I turn it into a superhero story for them. And people walk out more confident than they've ever felt in their lives. I am now confident enough to write a book called, you're going to love the title, Plenty of Husbands.
So good. I love it.
So coming to a bookstore near you. But I really feel like I'm turning like what I thought was my shame
Yeah.
into maybe the greatest story I've ever told, the story of my love life.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. We all have these stories we're ashamed of, but then you recognize that there are so many people out there that are going to go, oh my God, somebody with the courage to say it. That's me.
I hope so. I hope so. That's my goal. That's why I'm doing this still.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm taking the storytelling techniques that I used with big corporations and I'm giving it to the people and just saying, now you do it because there's so much happiness and joy and
Mm.
having a story that uplifts you. Your own,
Hmm.
can you imagine your own story uplifting you? I mean, that's
Yeah.
pure heaven, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. So, okay, so I've had some questions popping up here. What I'd love to do, if you don't mind, is just let's open it up to a Q&A.
I
Uh,
would love to talk
would you
about
love
it.
to do that? All right,
Yes.
let's do that. All right, gang. So here's what we're gonna do. Let me just change my view here to gallery. If you have a question for Robin, just raise your hand and
I
I'll
want to meet
call you
y'all.
and we'll unmute and let's let's do this. And first question goes to Laurel. Go ahead. Unmute and ask away.
Okay, I am really excited about what you're talking about. I'm a writer and I want to write about my life. I'm not able to come to your MEA workshop. Is there other ways that I can work with you online, or which of your books would help me? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hi, fellow writer. I first of all on my website, bigfishmarketing.com, there is so I've actually taken my mission statement and turned it into my website navigation. So I have a a menu bar that says write. So it's all about writing. One about telling, how you tell a great story, and one about living, right? So write, tell, and live. Under live, there's workshops. So you can
Ah,
look at doing a private with me. So that's fine. Otherwise, my books are on Amazon. Make a name for yourself. The Fearless Fish Out of Water. And I think the book for you is your no fear career because I actually have a whole section on how to tell great stories, how to get to the essence, how to put your past in the past, but how to bring forward the great pieces of it
yeah.
into a story.
And that's exactly what I
So
want to
I
do.
think the no fear
Yeah,
careers for you.
great. Thank you.
Sure.
Perfect. And other questions? Yeah, you just
Well, and
unmute yourself. Or
yeah,
go
and
ahead, Robin.
well, I wanted to just say while we're waiting for somebody else to raise their hand is Darwin talked about the idea of how you survive, the survival of the fittest. And it's about shedding what doesn't work anymore. So as you're coming up with your story, there are going to be things you let go of that just aren't relevant right now, that don't bring you joy to talk about. It's weighing you down. Remember, my company's called Big Fish. So I looked into like what was the evolution of the fish. It used to be have armor on it, and it was really hard to swim, and it had big bones, and it was just slow, so it got gobbled up. But over time it shed the armor, it got very flexible. you know that's what we have to do. We have to shed the armor, we have to get flexible, we have to be nimble now. And it's letting go of the stories that no longer serve us, that we have to do as we bring forth the story, Laurel, particularly, of what works for you and brings you joy, because I guarantee you it's going to help other people.
All right. Mary.
Hi, it's Marie in Santa Fe.
Hi,
Um,
Maria.
I think probably one of the movies of my life is I've always worked very carefully to keep myself safe. No surprise. Um, so when I hear marketers say I need to tell my own story because I'm publishing a book in January,
Great.
I feel like my story is kind of boring. It didn't bore me, but it doesn't seem like it has a David and Goliath or a silver bullet theme to it. It seems like keeping myself safe is, not so spicy. So I feel like there's this big gap between intellectually, I believe you, and I can't even imagine how that would apply to me.
Well, it could be the nobody could believe I could do it story. I mean, you sound like somebody who's trying to keep yourself safe, yet here you are publishing a book, which is wow. I mean, that's the ultimate way to put yourself out in the world. So I think you're a lot more courageous. I'd love to dig deeper with you, Maria. I mean, you're a lot more courageous than I think you are. And there's a story there. It could be when you were even in high school or elementary school, or it could be, recently. I don't know, but there's a point. And so today, after this call, if you could close your eyes and go deep inside, take 3 breaths and ask yourself, when was I brave? And just write down what comes up for you and write that story. I think you'd be pretty amazed, because there's no way somebody that was safe could be doing what you're doing right now, or even living in Santa Fe. People who live in Santa Fe are very special and courageous, but we're also, okay, not me, but others are very, very humble. And then you end up being, sitting next to somebody at the Cowgirl Saloon, and you find out, oh my God, they own 300 acres, and they're this amazing person. And it's just we just are very, kind of contained here. But there's a part of you that is incredibly courageous, or you wouldn't even be here.
You're right. There is something I take for granted because I've been the fish in the water. So what's this water thing? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So write about the water, write about you being a fish in the water, and write about when you've been brave. But close your eyes, everybody, today, if you have time, close your eyes. Take 3 breaths. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Or when was I brave? These are great exercises, but if we have our eyes wide open, we're not going to get there, because we're in our head and not our heart. Our heart is where all the creativity is. Our head is going to go into doubt, blocking, that blocks the instincts, the gut. So get out of the head, get into the heart through breath and closing eyes.
Thank you.
Good. All right. We've got a question from Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Robin.
Oh,
Hey, good to see you.
you too.
Hey, real quick, would you be able to share like what was maybe a single moment that got you out of the marketing and advertising and more into this leadership? And I don't know what else to call it, kind of thought leadership, the storytelling. I'm like you. I have been like oozing storytelling for the past couple of years, but I haven't let go of the brand and the marketing side. So I'm curious, what caused you to make that jump?
Gosh, thank you for asking that question. Nobody's ever asked me that question, so I applaud and I honor you for asking the question. So I was working for Warner Brothers Discovery as their brand strategist and storyteller over they went from Scripps to Discovery to Warner Brothers Discovery. And over those 10 years, I worked with them through every iteration. And it was like this beautiful, incredible family. We're all crazy about each other. And although I was just the consultant, I really felt a part of that family. And when it became Discovery, Warner Brothers Discovery in the last iteration, and the strikes happened, and my daughter was in Hollywood at that time working for CAA, and the way the studio was treating the writers, and my daughter's company, CAA, is fighting for the writers. And it was just, I felt out of sync with my mission, my purpose, my values. We also, values, is a big part of branding and marketing, and also creating your own personal brand and your own story. And my values were love, safety, and integrity. And I felt that I was out of sorts with my values, but I stayed for another couple of years because, like everybody, I just want to make the money, and I love these people, and I don't want to leave, and I feel so connected. But it started to erode, and in the year that I just left, and so it was really, I was writing 24 presentations at a time, branding, 24 networks writing their presentations, and then ultimately the speech for the chief revenue officer, and then talent. And I just I couldn't breathe. Have you ever been in a place where you're working so much you can't even breathe? Like you can't answer your sister's phone call. You can't pay attention to things the way you want. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have to do this. When this is over, I actually can start doing my side hustles, the things that I really love, inspiring people, the thought leadership, the storytelling. And I talked to Brian about it, who we already love, right? And he was all for it. And he said, "I got your back, girl. Let's make this happen." And it's been a transition. And I am not afraid to talk about all the iterations of and the fears and then the joy of that transition, because it's it's every day you have a new feeling, but overall it's the best decision I could have made. Thank you so much for asking me that, Paul. I've
No,
never even
thank you.
said all that out loud. I hope it wasn't too
No,
much.
no, it was beautiful. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Very grateful.
Oh, thank you.
So I have another question here that Stephanie just messaged to me, and she said, "Can you
Sure.
ask about writing personal story versus corporate stories for
Oh,
growing your brand story? More interested in writing personal memoir versus corporate branding."
wow. Well, okay. So that is such a great question. Let me talk to what they both have in common. Okay. So I use something called the messaging hierarchy when I write a story, whether it's a personal story or a corporate story. Start at the same place. My sister actually taught me this. Okay. My sister and I are both storytellers. My sister is really the hero. She does it for cancer research centers.
Oh.
So she's like the top in her field in storytelling for cancer research. So we both use this method that she taught me, and you start at the top of the pyramid, and it is, what is your governing thought? What do you want people to know or feel when you finish telling your story? What do you want to leave them with? Okay. So that's a very quick and very short statement. And it can be a tagline. Okay. It can be the tagline that you end up coming up with. Um, so, for Hewlett Packard Enterprise, I'll give you an example. When I created when I wrote the speech, I was the screenwriter for the Sphere. The first speech ever given in the Sphere by a corporate executive was last June. I wrote that speech and I art directed, with the help of this incredible designer named Sammy, the presentation that went on those screens. But I came up with the governing thought, and the governing thought is, intelligence has no limits. The story was about AI and how Hewlett Packard was elevating AI across every single industry. So intelligence has no limits was what I want people to believe when they leave. And then there were the 3 reasons why you should believe that statement. So so for me, my personal line is, write, tell, live your greatest story. That's what I want you to, brand strategist, storyteller, write, live, tell your greatest story. Take your pick depending on the audience. That's what I want that top of the pyramid to be. Short statement that's memorable. And then you have your 3 reasons why, or on a great road trip, remember, you don't want more than 3 places you're going to stop on that road trip. So your 3 places you're going to stop on the road trip. All right. Your main messages. So you have your governing thought, your main messages, only 3. And then reasons to believe goes underneath. Why should they believe these things about you? Why should they believe these things about the corporation? So it's the same storytelling technique for both. Does that make sense to everybody? It's like a roadmap. It really is. That's why I use this road trip analogy. And then for personal brand, right, or personal memoir or personal statement, those reasons to believe are all your stories. On a corporate side, the reasons to believe could be statistics, research, accolades, awards. See what I mean? That's like for on the corporate side. Or it could be the groups that you're building or the different infrastructure that you've created to support this big idea. So big idea, 3 reasons, main messages, and reasons to believe, regardless if it's personal or it's corporate. Oh, by the way, my new book, same thing, 3 acts. Title of the book, Plenty of Husbands, How to Find Love in Midlife. Then the 3 acts. My first act is I was a senseless idiot in love. Second was I was resilient in love. And third is I have had liberation through love. So it's the same thing. And then all the stories that support that.
So good. All right. We've got 2 more questions I think we can take here. And Connie, go ahead.
Hi, Connie.
Hi there. I'm over in Southern California.
Yay.
Very safe place.
It is.
No
It
crazy
is. I know it for
right
real.
on the road from Inglewood and Marina Del Rey. So,
Oh my gosh.
yes, I'm so glad to be here. And I am now 3 years out of retirement from, I said I was a lifer in academia. I escaped the ivory tower and I've been having the time of my life. But I also still feel there's a sense of things that I can offer, coaching, whatever. And I do a lot that's just more informal, but I want to kind of make a small business. And being in academia, business skills are like not what they teach you, not as a social science. So I'm trying to figure out, like what aspects of my story would be what people say, well, I want to learn more, how can you help me do this, etc. So, and then, I think about the fact that I'm about to turn 71 and people might think, well, you're too old, even though I'm a gerontologist and I know that age is just a number, but other people do see it as more than a number. So I guess I'm looking for some guidance as how to sort of like make that transition into this, really doing what I want to do, this piece of my life to really help other people.
Well, first, I want you to make a target audience list.
Okay.
Who is my target audience? Maybe they're seniors or people in the second half of life. That's who my audience is. So write down you want it to be midlifers. So forget about you being young. Nobody who's in our age group wants to hear from somebody young. Okay. That's another reason why I left Warner Brothers. I had a client who was like 30 years younger than me telling me what to do. It was like, are you joking? I'm like, no, we don't want to hear from somebody younger. So forget that. Get that out of your head. Okay. Second, number 2. You've got to declare your expertise. You've got to plant your flag in the ground. Why you? Why now? What void are you filling as a coach? What is your expertise? Okay, and then package that with storytelling. Success stories, testimonials, people who love you. You're going to get the client you want, but you have to declare who they are, what they're looking for, how you're filling the void, and then tell a story of expertise that can elevate you in their mind and make you the go-to coach for them.
Great. Thank you.
All right. And last question goes to Mr. J. Moss. Go ahead and unmute. Oh, you're muted, Jay. There you go.
Yeah, I did. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Hey, Jay Moss.
Perfect. Hey, how you doing, Robin?
I'm doing great.
Hey, you're fantastic, and I love that you talked about cavelling. So I get it. But I just got done going to the workshop in Baja with Jill, who was fantastic.
Good.
about who are you now,
Yes.
and the whole thing, because I've been in my career for 40 years. I'm in my, believe it or not, I don't look at mid-70s,
Ooh,
but
you look good.
I say that to myself all the time. But
Good for you.
but so the thing is that I don't want to retire. It's not my DNA.
Okay.
And I want to keep, I was in the home building industry. I'm still kind of in it. And so I worked with Jill, who has been wonderful, as I said, and we had a great group down there a couple of weeks ago. And then I've gone to the Wise and Wild, and I've got all this information floating around. So the bottom line is I'm trying to package it, because in an Enneagram, I'm a 3, which means I'm an achiever and I need a goal. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to put all this information, which is fantastic, together. Where do I go from here? Trying to put some parameters around what I'm doing.
Well, it needs a story. I mean, that's the missing thing. You've got the pieces. So you've peeled the artichoke and now you're at the fuzzy choke. You're in the middle.
I love artichokes.
I you're in the fuzzy part. So you're like, now what do I do? How do I get to the heart?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So first of all, I think that it's great you don't want to retire. I think it's your life, it's your choice. Now what you need to do is you've achieved so much. So now what do I want to achieve? How can I take all these pieces, all these artichoke leaves, and make sense of them, get to the heart of who I am, right? Did I hear you? That's what you really want. Yeah, so it's about weaving it into story and giving it and seeing where does that story go. So let's do the exercise. I want to give you the exercise that I give people at the end of the workshop. I want you to pretend you're the director of your own movie. I want you to write what happens when you get up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night and everything that happens in between in incredible detail. But it's not the future. It's not your current future. You're going to close your eyes. You're going to ask yourself, I'm the director of my own movie. I am going to write the movie about my future. Go. And then you just start writing. I want you to think about the location, the cast, the crew, the leading lady or leading man, the characters in your plot. What is the plot? What are you doing every day in this next life? And I guarantee you are going to get there. You're going to know what your goal is.
Okay, I'm going to try that, but I may contact you as well.
I want you to contact me. Come to Santa Fe.
I may do that. Will be my third one.
Good. 3's the charm.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour here. And Robin, thank you.
What a fun group. I want to stay with you guys all day.
Right? There's never enough time.
There's never enough time. Anyway, I love you all. And I want you to go out there and tell your greatest story without fear and with faith.
100%. And if you want help with that, and you want to go deeper, we do have that workshop starting August 25th to August 30th in Santa Fe at the ranch. I think they've dropped the link in the chat there. We'd love to see you there. And on that note, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a fantastic Thursday afternoon, and we'll see everybody again real soon.